All right. Good evening, everyone. How am I doing? How's my audio sounding? Uh, suppose I could check. I feel I feel out of practice, even though it's been just a couple of weeks away from stream. So we'll see how that looks. Let me go ahead and double check on YouTube that everything is fine. Looks like I'm live. Looks like everything looks good. Just 1 second here, though. I'm going to get to my main page, get back into it. All right. So confirmation by my wonderful professor and knight, my white knight. You look and sound great. And Big Al, my friend, says you look and sound good. Good. Awesome. Yeah, so I hope everyone's having a nice Monday. Hopefully you're getting ready for Holy Week and Easter. And after this, I'll be able to eat cheese on Fridays. Again, I gave up cheese on Fridays. I tried to give up cheese for the entire Lent, but that was a tall task. I have a rather sweet flavored lunch. I have fruit and I have like a peanut butter toast, and so I like something salty, and I don't eat chips unless it's like on a Sunday night. So I'll have like a couple slices of cheese, and man, when I don't have it, it's like, oh, I feel like I'm lacking. But anyway, let's go ahead and welcome the chat, and then we'll just get right to talking about just a very strange phenomenon. No, I can't remember which is plural. The strange scenario that I have seen on the internet. Every time I look up a John Williams soundtrack on YouTube or a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, there will be people in the comment section that will say, he's just like John Williams. He's just like Hans Zimmer. And, as someone who's in music and specializes in music, I'd like to make the distinction between the two, if it's not already obvious. But this is not actually, by the way, I do prefer Williams to Hans Zimmer, but this is not a stream that's going to bash Hans Zimmer. And in fact, I do think now, listening to a couple other of his film soundtracks, I do believe Hans Zimmer has incredible potential of having excellent music all the time. He's just made some formulaic decisions recently that make him pretty much sound exhausting, if not the same. But I do think he has potential and the creativity and the resources to produce wonderful music. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I did we can pin comments now on the chat. I did pin this. Great topic. I'm ready for your wisdom, my Tunuvial. Well, thank you for coming, my Baron. Go Team Ghost Planet, go. Oh, no go. Okay, no go. Ghost Team Ghost Planet is in the house. Dr. Y is also in the house. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. Well, they're both composers. They're just quite different. Yeah, that actually, like a highly analytical Sesame Street episode, right? So Daniel, both Daniel, welcome, and Big Al say, wait, who's saying this? Yeah, it's just people just comparing them, because they like music, but it's a different kind of music, of course. And then Big Al says, people on the tube be crazy. And then we've got Ace Moick. Good evening, madam. I'll probably stick around for an hour this time. Maybe that will cover most of the stream. So that's good. That's good. Dr. Y with his pointless trivia. John and Hans, this is true, are variations of the same Hebrew name. One is English and the other is German, Scandinavian, and Danish. Oh, I hear myself. 1 second. I need to mute myself. All right. I was like, oh, I heard the ghost of me somewhere. All right. Anyone else? So we've got, Daniel Heron and soundtracks with Birdman. Thank you so much for being able to come tonight. I do see that you have, I think, I think you have morning streams sometime in the week with your friends, which is really cool. Sometimes I try to make them. I think it's Eric Woods. You said it before. He has a lot to talk about when it comes to soundtracks, and very engaging, very insightful. So I'm glad you have him as a guest. And I can't remember the name of the other fellow. I think his name is Ethan, but pretty pretty good. Let's go ahead and I think that's everyone. Oh, okay, well, Big Al is talking about how he does cheese to yet it won't spoil my dinner. Let's see. I hanker for a hunk of a slab, a slice, a chunk. I don't even know what this means. It's probably a reference that I should know but don't, or maybe I shouldn't know. Maybe I referred to something that wasn't that all appropriate. So, okay, so soundtracks with Birdman is confirming just started the Batman show on most Mondays with Eric and Ian. Okay, most Mondays. Cool. That's wonderful. Wonderful. So, I think until I see more people in the chat. Oh wait. Oh, sorry. I think Final Fantasy fan. If I did not acknowledge you, welcome. And hopefully more people will turn up. But yeah. So I see the comparison. I see these two composers, John Williams and Hans Zimmer. I see them compared quite a bit together. And a lot of people who are very much musically inclined or have at least some musical sensibilities, of course, would say there's a great distinction between the two. So why do people compare them? Why or compare them as the same? I don't unless it's an analytical, coming from an analytical perspective, unless I see that analytical perspective, they usually compare them as, oh, they're just like each other. They're the same. It's never a compare and contrast. This is what I'm doing actually. Hopefully, I'll find some similarities between the two, but it'll be mostly distinctions, things, musical ideas that and compositional methods that distinguish them. So what makes people compare John Williams and Hans Zimmer as one and the same? Oh, John Williams sounds like Zimmer. Zimmer sounds like John Williams. Well, it's actually pretty much a very basic thing that causes people to say that, and that is they are both highly established composers in the film music world. They are household names. So their names are ubiquitous. Their music, both Williams and Zimmer, they have music that is ubiquitous. It's everywhere, not just on major streaming platforms or films. They're you could just access their music very, very easily, whether the physical copy or in the digital space, or whatever that looks like. And also their music is found in famous films. So that's pretty much the only thing that people could say, well, hey, this is why they're the same. But apart from that, their musical abilities and sensibilities and their composition methods are quite different. So let's actually go ahead and talk about that. But let me welcome Private Eye Perspective, Private Eye on Retrospectiva. Good evening, Miss Sound. I will say I have no idea what the title refers to. Oh, okay. Are you being cheeky, or is that serious? No, actually, I think maybe a lot of people haven't seen others say that they are the same, so we'll see. All right. And also, Craig Wagner is here. The only way I'd compare Williams and Zimmer is in that they score is in what they score, not how, meaning they both compose music for blockbuster style movies. That's it, really. Exactly. So they have their own method, they have their own practice, they have their own studio, they have their own way of instrumentation, and then they compose for mainstream films, and that's pretty much it. So on on those terms, you could say, well, yeah, they're the same. So I wanted to bring it into a little, bring a little bit more light to the topic, speaking as a person who is invested in music, both creatively and also professionally, and who's a composer herself. I'd like to add a little bit more light on, what makes them quite different from one another. So I thought the best way to do that was actually compare their treatment of the character Superman with their music themes. Now, I might come across a little cheeky. I wouldn't say sardonic or anything, but I would say with Hans Zimmer, it isn't Superman. It is, actually, he doesn't even call it the Superman theme. He calls it the Man of Steel theme. It's known as the Man of Steel theme. The film title, and then whatever Henry Cavill is known for by that name. And I know we have some very strong opinions on Cavill's treatment of Superman here in these parts of the nerd woods, or the geek woods. So I'm only speaking. This is just me speaking objectively as a composer. I have never seen Man of Steel. I don't have any plans to watch it. Of course, especially dating Professor Geek, that would be a big no-no. But I did listen to the melody that is known as the Man of Steel theme. So we'll make a comparisons. The musical differences between how John Williams composed for Superman with his iconic Superman 78, and then also Hans Zimmer with his Man of Steel. So let's go ahead and begin, and then we will return to the chat. So I pulled up some notes, and it's actually just, for my notes, we are only going over the themes, and then maybe I'll impromptu, maybe with your suggestions, if you guys have any feedback on what you're hearing, and all of that. Now, actually, I do want to, let me just bring this to the table before I begin. So with Hans Zimmer, as of late, any notes that I say of Hans Zimmer is not to be critical or negative. I do pick on him. I've picked on him before in my previous streams, and I do want to be fair to the man, because as I said before at the beginning of the stream, I do want to say that Hans Zimmer, with his resources in electronic music libraries and his past soundtracks with things like Lion King, things like The Lone Ranger, which was composed or at least released in 2013, the same year as Man of Steel, some gorgeous stuff. Lion King, the classic Disney movie in the 90s, gorgeous melodies, like memorable, breathtaking melodies that will go to the end of time because they're so great. The classic Lion King movie, The Lone Ranger. I listened. I took some time to listen to the soundtrack today, and I listened to, I think, 3 tracks, and then there were a couple of them that were just striking, so beautiful, well-rounded, great instrumentation, beautiful melodies, beautiful voice leading, beautiful chord progression, great structure, overall structure. And that music, actually, I know nothing about that film. I know nothing about the setting. I know nothing about the story or the character. But that film, or the film soundtrack, rather, could easily transport me to a place like the Badlands, or, some dry, arid landscape in Utah or whatever, so I could picture going to a kind of setting, you know, not Midwest, toward the mountains there, the mountain states, and it's really quite riveting. It's just wonderfully done. So he has very much the capability of producing his own signature and also excellent music. And I would say this, like, I love his experimentation. I do like his experimentation with electronic music, but if he did with his experimentation what John Williams did with the orchestra, Hans Zimmer could actually go down as great as John Williams. But he has become formulaic. I might have said this before in my streams, but he loves bands like Tangerine Dream. Now, I love Tangerine Dream too, but he composes like he's touring on, with that band, like he's a member. I don't think he ever was a member. I didn't bother to check that part of the history, but I remember him being inspired by a band like Tangerine Dream. And I think there's a lot of cinematic moments in their music. I think a lot of the stuff I do like of Tangerine Dream, I like a lot, and I'm fine with Hans Zimmer liking it too, or that band Tangerine Dream. But I get the feeling he like there's in his recent electronic music, I feel like there's like this bit of regret, like this professional regret. Like I kind of wish I toured with them, or if he had, like I wish I toured with them longer. I wish I started a band like Tangerine Dream. That's what I hear in his recent electronic music. But I'm not saying he cannot work with good soundscapes and instrumentation. I actually think he can work with those very well, but then translate that over to what he's done with things like The Lion King or The Lone Ranger. If he did that, I would actually esteem him as a figure, maybe not quite like John Williams. John Williams still is on that higher tier, but pretty darn close, pretty darn close. So I just wanted to say that I do want to be fair to Hans Zimmer because I think he has a lot of potential. I know he's in his 60s. I know he's had so many films behind him already, but I think again, let me just kind of recap it where whatever good soundscapes and experimentation, if he did that as what John Williams had done with the music score, it would just be great. Because I've heard a lot of good melodies when it comes to writing melodies. Hans Zimmer has the ability to write very good, memorable melodies. So we'll continue. We'll go over the structure of the Superman themes, and then I will go ahead and read your comics. Comments. Every time I say comments, I want to say comics. All right. So all right. So oh, you know what? Actually, before I start my little presentation, I've got my notes here. Let's see if I can actually. I still want to see the chat move just to make sure I can see you all, guys. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Just want to be sure. Yeah, as long as I can see the chat. I do see Zootopia is in the house. That is good. All right, so let's go over the notes or load up the notes. I haven't done this in a long time. Pull up the notes there. All right, so John Williams and Hans Zimmer, are they the same? People on the internet, when you look up a John Williams soundtrack or a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, you'll find comments below on the YouTube channels or the YouTube videos. You'll find comments below saying, oh, just like John Williams. Oh, just like Hans Zimmer. They are the great ones together. And I would say, are they the same? Well, if you have musical sensibilities and you have some musical inclinations on discerning different things going on in music, you can easily deduce. You could easily actually not even deduce. You could easily see and easily hear that they are not the same. They are quite different as far as musical signatures, compositional methods, and all of that. So let's actually compare their treatment of Superman, the character Superman. So we'll first start with John Williams, his Superman 78 theme. And even before saying that, I do have a complete analysis of this Superman 78 theme if you haven't already seen it. It was about a year and a half ago when I made that analysis. So I would just refer to that if you really want to go in depth into the musical analysis. I'm just going to cover the basic structure this time. So we will compare the two themes. We will go with structure, and then we will look into use of consonants, melody, harmony, and instrumentation. So let's begin with the 78 theme, Superman 78 theme. So it does begin in C major. Keep that in mind. That is important. The structure is including an intro to an A, B, A, C, A form. So what is that? We've got the A melody, the major melody that we all know and love, the main melody that we all know and love, followed by a B melody, a completely different melody, followed by recap, a short recap of the A melody, followed by a new melody, the C melody, and then a final recapitulation of the main A melody theme. So that structure is A, B, A, C, A. And that is the classic rondo form. That is the classic rondo structure, where you have the main melody with a different melody before a recapitulation of that melody. And it can go as far as up to a D melody. It's usually a 5-part structure or a 7-part structure. In this case, A, B, A, C, A is a 5-part structure. A, B, A, C, A, D, A, of course, is a 7-part structure. I think I have that right. Yeah, 7-part structure. This is 2. This is not 7. So it's a classic rondo structure. This is an old Western classic, very common form of the Renaissance period, getting into the uh, Baroque, early Baroque, and even into the classical period with Mozart and Haydn. So props to John Williams for composing Superman with a very nice Western classical wholesome structure. Now, even if you left the C melody out, that C section out, then it would become ABA form, which is the standard classic 3-act or excuse me, ternary form. So ABA form is the classic ternary form. You could see that as the classic sonata form with exposition, digression, and recapitulation. Even smaller than that is the binary form, which is just A, B, no recap of A. But to make things very exciting, to keep you anticipating the arrival, the return, and the work of Superman, John Williams gives us an incredible plethora of very good music with this rondo form. So let's look into it a little bit deeper. So I would say just overall the length is great because the repetition of every melody works very well. You've got a great full scale melody, the A melody, followed by B, and then later down the road a C melody, and they all have a very nice length to them. And they also have a very nice long transition to anticipate the return of the main melody. Now, going into it a little bit more, you have the intro. So you have that very nice, just timpani. You just got that nice timpani roll, and then you have I do believe it's a French horn. Dun, 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 dun. Whoa, my voice cracked because I haven't sung. I have not used my voice in like five days. Dun, dun, dun. Very simple. You've got that beautiful open intro with the beautiful use of the perfect fifths, that nice solo horn, and all of that. Then, after that beautiful intro, you go into this anticipation, getting into that wonderful A melody. So the intro with the A melody following, then you go to a wonderful B melody. And this has a change of instrumentation, from brass to lower strings. And with that, after the finishing of the B section, you have an 8 plus 2 bar transition. So a full phrase, a full 8-bar phrase of transition going back to the A melody, but another 2 bars to really excite the listener to see, oh, okay, Superman is going to fix the situation. He's going to be the hero. Okay, we're back to the main wonderful melody, the recapitulation of the melody. And then after that, you've got the C melody. And this melody, the C melody, John Williams decided to modulate this from the key of C major to the key of F major. And I think that's beautiful because it's actually a perfect fourth relationship. Perfect fourth, apart from the octave, the perfect fifth, apart from the octave and the perfect fifth, the perfect fourth is next in open consonants, or perfection, has that open, and any harmonic intervallic relationship that is a fourth or a fifth is open, it is consonant. So he's using consonants, he's using the perfect fourth, the F major, the perfect fourth of C as that open beauty, and he's using that for the key change. So the C melody actually is in the key of F major, and F major is, used Very much like C major, F major is used for royal procession. It's supposed to be a mark of regality. It's supposed to be a mark of kingliness. And we're continuing on with the C melody. Now, like the B melody, the C melody has an 8-bar transition. It doesn't have an extra 2 bars, but it does have that symmetrical divided by 2 8-bar transition with 2 4-bar phrases. And actually, I will say that the transition of the B melody, getting back to the A melody, is also 2 4-bar phrases as well. Gotta put that symmetry in there because symmetry in music is really, really important. But this 8-bar transition is a little off. It's actually a 6 plus 2 bar arrangement where you have that nice full 4-bar phrase, and then you have 2 bars, and then you're anticipating something else, a completely different phrase from what's coming before. But that's to lead the listener back into that anticipation. Oh, I gotta wait for Superman. He's gonna jump off the building, and then he's gonna dive to the ground, and he's gonna break into his, wonderful costume and fly to save the day. So John Williams is really working with transitions in a kind of anticipatory manner. And then one final, after the transition from the C melody, we've got one final key modulation to the A melody. So the A melody is returning, the A melody that we know and love, and it's returning to one final key modulation to G major, which is the perfect fifth. Now, this is perfect, so to speak, because G major is the perfect fifth of C major. It's like the dominant to tonic relationship. Or if you're just working with intervals, it's the perfect fifth. Next to the octave, C to a higher C or a lower C, the perfect fifth is the next most perfect consonant relationship in the scale. So again, you got to think of perfection. You've got to think of openness. You've got to think of beauty and being ideal as far as intervallic relationships. So remember, John Williams goes from C major to the perfect fourth to the perfect fifth, and then he ends there. He actually does a final recapitulation in G major. Now, he could have just done a giant 5-to-1 chord progression with that recap, but he actually just stuck it in as G major, which is fine because he finishes on the tonic, which is G of G major. The tonic is G, which is perfect because actually G is the first note of the entire piece. This is he begins on a fifth. So you've got C, da, man, my voice is off. Don, 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 don. Sorry for my voice breaking, guys. Maybe you can't hear that. I can hear that. But anyway, all that to say is he's very much fine to not even go back to C major. Ending it on G major is quite perfect. So that is the structure, the classic rondo structure, the 5-part structure that has a lot of variety and in the melody and the phrasing and the transitions, and that's what keeps the listener quite excited, quite enlivened. Not even just to see Superman on screen, but to actually hear and feel the essence of Superman with all that compositional activity involved. Now, let's talk about consonants. Consonants, and you may have heard the term before outside of music. Consonance is beauty. Consonance is anything that complements another thing. You've got to have a shade of a wall color is matching another shade of another wall color, or maybe the molding of the ceiling and floor. Things that have consonants are just things that go well together. But with music, it's actually a mathematical relationship. You've got scale degrees where they have more open consonants against other scale degrees, or maybe juxtaposing other scale degrees that have a little bit more dissonance in the relationship. So consonants and dissonance, they're quite common words outside the music, but quite important to talk about when, especially talking about something like composing a music theme for a superhero. So with Superman 78, the theme, John Williams has a really wonderful use of consonants. He has open chords. He has beautiful triads. He's just got the way to use regal sounding intervallic relationships between the melody and the harmony, and going from chords and interdependent voices, and all around just a very nice complementary space, whether that is in the melody, harmony, or just in the overall structure. And you can't really have consonants without dissonance, just kinda like you can't understand good without understanding, you know, evil. That's a little bit more philosophical. Maybe I shouldn't have used that example. But you do need to understand. I would say, the person could aurally perceive consonants much better when they actually have dissonant relationships. So with Williams using consonants is really good, not just with his, perfect intervallic relationships, or using things like the perfect fourth, fifth, the major third, and all that, but he does use a very healthy, balance of dissonance. One thing that I mentioned on my video, my analytical video some months back, or even over a year back, he uses the major ninth. Yeah. Dun 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 da da da. And then into the next phrase, bum 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 bottom. I mean, that's a major ninth, and that ninth actually is dissonant. It's supposed to actually lead to the top octave there, the tonic, the C, da, da. But he actually does, he kind of brings it down before finally resolving. So he uses a good healthy dose of dissonance to resolve things, to anticipate and resolve. Uh, really, a mathematical form of patterns and relationships. I won't talk about the mathematics of the scale degrees and the chromatic scale with semitones and stuff like that. But if you guys maybe a lot of you are aware, but music actually is very much involved with mathematical relationships. So Williams uses consonants very, very well, and he uses dissonance when he has to. Melody, active and expansive in range. So with his melody, his main A melody, he expands to a major 11th in range. So the octave plus four, excuse me, one, two, three steps up to so from a I would say G. What would I say? I'm just going to say this. I'm not sure if this is the exact register, but it's the G below middle C to the C above middle C. So that is ranging an 11th, wider than an octave, and his melodies are so active and engaging that actually does make it, as long as you've got your melody active, that there's a lot going on with rhythm and intervallic steps and jumps and all of that, and fixed duration. You're gonna have a memorable melody. So melody is active and it has a wide enough range. The harmony is also active, but with chords, there are chords. We hear it with the percussion and the timpani, bum ba da ba 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 bum ba da ba 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 ba, like that. But also not just with chords, stacked chords of notes stacked atop one another, but also the voices of the harmony. The voices inside the entire orchestra are interdependent, meaning you've got things moving in their own way and in their own trajectories and their own um, positions of activity. You've got the foreground, you've got the middle ground, and you've got the background with the harmony. And that is really, really important for orchestral writing. But I would say that's important for electronic writing too. Take note, Göransson. Chromaticism. He uses chromaticism, which functions as good voice leading. So every time I mention voice leading in composition, you are leading to a point. You're using certain voices, and there's certain mathematical relationships in the scale with the scale degrees and the chords to resolve to a new thing or the final thing. So chromaticism is really good, using chromatic notes and to lead up or to bring down a voice, and Williams does that really well. And then finally, instrumentation, where with Williams, not surprising, you've got an appropriate use of the entire orchestra. You've got great contrast with the instruments. With his fanfare A melody, then you've got the B melody, which you're being pulled from the brass section to the just really mellow, quite romantic sounding lower strings, which is I kind of think is more like the Lois and Clark um, relationship, because it's very much happy, but it's warm feeling. So beautiful contrast between the A and the B melodies, and also the C and B and A melodies. So great contrast, and then constant variety between phrases. Not only phrases inside the melodies, but the transitions between the melodies, and the general contrast between the melodies themselves, the A melody, the B melody, and the C melody. So that is Hans Zimmer. No, not Hans Zimmer. No, not yet. We're getting to him. That is John Williams' Superman 78 theme in a nutshell. So just a real quick recap. You've got the A-B-A-C-A 5-part structure, the classic rondo structure. And then you have beautiful use, a healthy use of consonants and dissonance. You've got a great active melody that expands an octave in range, an octave plus a few other steps, a few steps up. Great active harmony with interdependent voices with a foreground, middle ground, and background. Good use of chromaticism that functions as voice leading, and then also instrumentation, a good proper use of the entire orchestra with excellent contrast between the melodies and also those phrases and transitions. So that is the Superman 78 theme. And that actually is how, in general, I would say that is how John Williams composes, those key points that I laid out for the Superman theme. All right, so let me, we'll get to the chat soon. Let's talk real quick about Man of Steel theme, okay? All right, so actually, I will say that John Williams, remember, he originally, I think the Superman theme is in C major. Man of Steel theme is in C major, or is it minor? I can't tell. Just a little bit of a sidebar. I will call this the Man of Steel theme. I won't call it the Superman theme. But I just discovered last night, I see a stink bug on my wall. I just had to make sure it was a stink bug and not a spider. No, it's a stink bug. But I just discovered last night that the title for the Man of Steel theme, or the Superman theme, is called "What Are You Gonna Do When You're Not Saving the World?" And that's not Superman. That's not Superman at all. Because if Superman were asked that question, he would say saving the world. That's what it would be. So let's get into the Man of Steel theme. Is it C major or is it C minor? I can't really tell. Okay, so with Williams, we had the A-B-A-C-A structure, the 5-part structure. You know what we have for Hans Zimmer? We've got an intro, just like John Williams, we've got an intro and an A melody, but that's it. It's not even a binary form. Binary form is the smallest variety. You've got your A melody followed by a B melody, or A section followed by a B section. But we didn't even get that. We just have pretty much an intro and an A melody that goes to the vast reaches of space. So it's very nebulous. So it's an ambient intro with a slightly, if I heard that right, it's actually a slightly detuned piano. Now, detuning causes a little bit of physiological and psychological anxiousness when you're tuning a violin. And if I didn't tune my violin, perfect, where the strings were resonant, there is a little bit of a kind of a crunch. A sound is very compressed. It just doesn't sound right. Or even if I tune my violin too sharp, it just doesn't sound right. It sounds off. So I think this piano, it's a nice sounding piano. But it is kinda like the stereotypical piano that I hear in electronic music where it's supposed to kinda sound out of tune. You're supposed to hear the pad of the keys of the pad of the hammer hitting the key, the strings, and, it's slightly detuned, so it's supposed to be a little off. So detuned, not perfect, not, not perfect in tuning like what we were hearing with, John Williams' perfect intervals, like the perfect fourth and perfect fifth. The melody is a simple line of four-bar phrases and transitions, but we'll get into those just a little bit. The repetition of the melody is distinct only in the growing volume and instrumentation. So what that means is Hans Zimmer actually has the melody in four-bar phrases. So the first four bars are played out, and then he's gonna repeat those exact four bars in the exact same way musically, except growing in volume. Now, what does that mean? Could that mean the actual gain of the mixer? I don't think so, but you're perceiving that. The growing volume actually has more to do with the instrumentation. It has to do with the percussion specifically. And so he'll have your four bars, and then he'll give you your four bars, and then it's the same four bars, just smacking more percussion together. It's supposed to be building excitement, but it's actually a really simple layering of instruments that can actually just come across as a little bit lazy. Um, Now we had with Williams, as far as the structure, we had 4-bar and 8-bar phrases with maybe a 2-bar extension, into whether it's the A melody or a transition or a transition leading into, like, the C melody, for instance. So we had a little bit of asymmetry there, like 8 bars plus 2, but it served to anticipate us diving right into the recap of the A melody. Now we have a little bit of symmetry here. Symmetry, things divisible by 2 or 4, but it's actually quite terrible. I was actually counting how he was, the bars, how he was working these phrases of the melody. You've got 2 bars, not 4-bar phrases, and you kinda want 4 bars or longer to have, like, a complete memorable feel. But he begins with 2 bars. And then he adds another 2 bars to add a dissonant low end pitch, plus 4, so a 4-bar phrase, and then another 4-bar phrase, and then I was expecting another 4-bar phrase, so we had a lovely 16-bar finish, but no. He actually keeps going for another 12 bars. Now 12 is an even number, but it's not symmetrical. And so you've got 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 12. That is divisible by 2, but it's terrible symmetry. It's not well, I shouldn't even call it symmetry. It's actually quite unpleasant to feel. I'm like, "Okay, when are we gonna stop? I'm ready to resolve." And so I went through it again, and I asked myself, "Okay, the melody's repeating again. Does the following repetition of the melody follow this symmetry?" And actually, it doesn't. It actually goes 4 bars plus 4 bars plus 4 bars plus 4 bars, like a standard classical melodic phrase. And then we have, he doesn't even follow his own asymmetry, and maybe that was on purpose. Um, so it's supposed to give the person. I wonder if he was going for that anticipatory feeling, like, oh, I'm ready to see Superman come or whatever. But it actually feels very off because you don't know how long the transition is going to go for. With John Williams, even though it's a longer than normal transition into another thing, it still has enough activity to engage you and then feel completed when it's finally finished. This doesn't feel. It just feels time stretched, like you're kind of in this time zone, like suspended in space, and maybe that's what he was going for. So after that, he goes into a 4-bar interlude, and after that 4-bar interlude, it is kind of engaging, but it's kind of just it's strings being percussion, which I think strings should be strings. Yes, you could say Stravinsky made strings percussion, and that's fine. But if strings are only percussion, then that's not the use of strings. That's not the function of strings. And we could talk about that a little bit later. But what was I saying? Uh, oh, after this 4-bar interlude of just percussive strings, the melody repeats itself, but it doubles in timing. So whatever was a 2-bar phrase is now a 4-bar phrase. So whatever intervallic relationships were moving inside a melody, you have to stretch that by double the amount. And it was already drone-like and ambient and long, but then he just really stretches it. And he uses the major ninth. He does go from C to B, right below that C in the higher octave. He does the same as Williams. That's the interval Williams does, but in this case, it's such prolonged ambience that it actually makes it unsettling. It's like it's all this like chord clusters, and it just doesn't feel functional the way a leading tone, the B, right up to C should feel. Now, with talking about Williams with his use of consonants, dissonance is everywhere with Hans Zimmer. So I just want to bring it to the table. If you think Hans Zimmer sounds the same, it's because he does not know how to use dissonance in the traditional musical and mathematical way. As I said before, intervallic relationships are quite mathematical in music. And if you add dissonance and ambience everywhere all the time, there's no room for function and tension and resolve. If it's all dissonance, there's no resolve because there's no tension, because it's ambient dissonance. And so that's actually why people might think Hans Zimmer, at least recently with what he's done with electronic music, that's probably why people may think he sounds the same, because he actually uses dissonance all the time. Whereas you need to use, like, kind of like with conflict in television writing or just writing in a story. Yeah, you have to have conflict, but you can't have it perpetual where there's no breath to take. And that's kind of how Zimmer is using this dissonance, where there's just no breathing space. There's nothing wrong. You have to use dissonance, but the way he uses dissonance, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. There's no resolve. And that's what he does with this Man of Steel theme. And the very little consonants that he does use is in his melody is overly simplistic. So with I probably should grab some water real quick. With John Williams' melody, dun 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 dun, bum 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 bum, dun 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 dun, ba 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 dum, ba 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 dum, ba 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 da da da. Sorry for my bad voice. Da 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 da. I actually didn't mean to sing, but so you've got that with John Williams' melody. Well, it's very active, like it's rhythmic. It's got a pulse. It's got you pulled into these wide leaps, these intervallic leaps, because Superman is about flying through the air, and originally he was leaping off buildings and stuff like that. So John Williams was very cognizant of portraying Superman that way musically. With Man of Steel theme, it ain't so active. The melody is pretty much this. Da 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 dum ba dun da dun da, and then he holds it. And my foot fell asleep. So that's his melody. That's his melody. And people could say, well, how does he justify a melody like that? Well, he does it with ambience. He does it through electronic instrumentation ambience. It's not active at all. It's super simple. And I don't even mean simple in a good way. Simple is good. You should have simplicity in your melody. But it doesn't work in that context, that melodic context, especially with a character like Superman. So if you think Henry Cavill is really dry as Superman, it's because he has a lousy theme. But I know there are other problems that Henry Cavill has. I know you guys have your opinions. Always be polite. Um, so that's melody. It's inactive, it's prolonged, and it actually expands only to a ninth or an octave. Now, that there's nothing wrong with that. I need to be very clear that there's nothing wrong with composing a melody that ranges only in an octave. If it's singable, if it's hummable, if it's active enough, if it's memorable, that's fine. But it's inactive. That's the problem with it restricted only to an octave in Hans Zimmer's cases, because it's really kind of boring. And then we get into harmony, only chords and drums too, only chords and drones. It's all ambience, it's all washed out dissonance, and there's no interdependence between the voices. You don't have, it's just stacked chords after stacked chords after stacked chords. The only activity you hear in the motion is the percussion. That is not a good use of either the orchestra or electronic music. There's no chromaticism that should pull you one way or bring you down another way. Anything chromatic is more open and modal for ambience, not for voice leading. You must have voice leading when it comes to having your melody memorable, and there's nothing that like that here. And the instrumentation is a quite a mediocre use of the orchestra. There's no variety between the phrases of the A melody. It's just these long ambient phrases. The only variety is the growing volume in the instrumentation, the percussion, whether he drops the percussion or he adds the percussion. So that is the Man of Steel theme. And I wouldn't want to say this is always how Hans Zimmer composes, but it has been this case with things like Dune. So I'm not going to talk about The Lone Ranger or Lion King, or maybe even Gladiator. I didn't get a chance to listen to the Gladiator soundtrack, so if you guys actually have any opinions on that, where it's like, okay, yeah, there's potential for Hans Zimmer to create beautiful, memorable melodies, but with something, if he continues following the formula of Man of Steel, he will sound washed out the entire time. I mean, I did like the movie experience of Blade Runner, and I think there were a lot of beautiful moments, musically speaking. But at the same time, it was just still that washed out feel, and that's what they were going for because, you know, uh, the there's that scene with the ocean and the border of the city. What was it? Was it Los Angeles that he went to see Harrison Ford's character? And it's supposed to be hazy, and so it's supposed to be hazy and ambient all around, but there are some beautiful intimate moments too, but you shouldn't sound washed out all the time. Not all the time. So that is the comparison, the compare and contrast between John Williams and Hans Zimmer, because the way John Williams composed Superman, he pretty much composed for everything else. I mean, of course, E.T. is different. Of course, Star Wars is different, musically speaking, as far as themes and structure and all of that. But, he's that was pretty much the impetus. Now, I can't speak for John Williams' previous things, previous to Superman 78, but he's known by that signature, and that's a pattern. That's a pattern of his proficiency and practice. With Zimmer, I think it's like if that's his pattern, if he decided, okay, that's me, Man of Steel, that's me, that's my signature for life, then I would say, well, okay. Now he tried a few different things with Interstellar, with the electric organ, and some things with piano there too. I'm not saying he isn't experimenting newer things, but I think he has to actually. There's an exercise that we did in college once where we actually had to compose in a way we would not otherwise do. Like anything we would default to intuitively, we would actually practice to do something completely different. And I think Hans Zimmer actually needs a little bit of that exercise because it does sound formulaic. His Man of Steel sounds pretty formulaic. Dune, it's interesting, but that couldn't hold me for long. Couldn't hold me for long, especially not for a film. So anyway, I'd like to see what you guys say to that. Let me go back to chat. All right. I think Ace is saying, "Oh, is it gonna post?" There we go. Recently started watching Super Sentai series, Chujin Sentai Jetman. I think I've seen an opening scene for that, or kind of the opening credits for that. Very good music for a show for adolescents, even stealing a part for a riff. Cool. Don't make it too familiar. I mean, even though that might be a popular show in Japan, or is that like an old 80s show? I thought it sounds like either a cartoon or kind of a young adult show, if I remember that correctly, for very popular in Japan. But just be careful if it's too recognizable. I talked about that on my rant, with Dave Filoni blatantly stealing from Tolkien with his name Stormcrow for Ahsoka Tano. If it's too recognizable, I'd be careful. But you said riff, so that no, I mean people sell beats all the time, so riff is fine. Private Eye says, cheeky, but a little confused on the idea that people would say that they are the same. I mean, they are highly prolific composers. Well put, yeah. But I don't see a similarity beyond that. Yeah, exactly. I think people are just saying general things, and I'm not like calling them out for it, but I just wanted to like kind of say what it is. And Professor Geek says, "That's my girl." I must have said something about Henry Cavill or something. Soundtracks Birdman says, "I like the piano that Hans Zimmer used in Man of Steel. It sounded nice. Okay, I will say it is kind of a musical cliche to use padded piano sounds, like a slightly detuned, reverberated piano, and that's a very common cliche in music. It's also common in like out of the Northwest. That's such a Northwest independent film sound, I didn't mind it too much. I just wish it was a little bit tuned a little bit with more resonance, because when it is detuned, maybe I'm hearing that wrong. I thought it was slightly. He used very obscure intervals that could make it sound detuned. But my question is, why do you want to sound detuned for someone like Superman? Superman pretty much should have it together by the time he goes to Metropolis. So I don't like the detuning for Superman. Detune a detuned piano for someone like Lex Luthor, that would be sweet. That would be sweet. That kind of calculating mind and stuff like that. That would be pretty cool. But not Superman. Not Superman at all. But again, it's a nice sound. Just in fairness. Craig says, "I'm someone who's okay with Man of Steel, but I'll concede that the thing I thought the best about it was the score. I like the score better than the movie. I wish the movie was as good as the score." That's interesting, because music is really important for the film, but you're kind of making it a very astute point there, that the music. Let's say I'm not a fan of the music of that film. Well, at least not his theme. I think the theme could have been so much better. But let's say I did like that score. That could actually cloud my judgment on the film, and music should not do that at all. Now, because you see that the film you're composing for is subpar, and then therefore you make your music subpar. No, you still have to do the best. But it's interesting that you would say it like that. Ace says, "I saw Man of Steel when I was in an anti-Superman phase, and even I knew that was not a proper Superman. Only positive is that it got me to rewatch the Reeve Donner films and read the better stories." Interesting. Yeah. So you watched Man of Steel as an anti-Superman kind of fan or phase or whatever. I'll tell you a funny story. I knew nothing, until I started listening to the prof's videos. I knew nothing about Batman. Now, apart from Bruce Wayne wanting vengeance, I didn't really mind Batman Begins as far as telling the origin story. But he is out for vengeance, and that's not Batman. That's not Bruce Wayne. But I remember seeing all the films. I do remember liking the Joker, Heath Ledger's treatment of the Joker. But I remember watching the last movie, and I didn't know anything about Batman, and I didn't know the problems of the lore and Nolan's treatment of the character. But I remember not knowing a thing about Batman. I remember that last scene when Alfred is in Italy or whatever, and he sees Bruce from a distant table with Selena Kyle, and then he holds up a champagne glass or whatever. And this is after, he, I think, sends the bomb over to the lake or whatever. I can't remember clearly. He defeats Bane and sends the bomb away to save the citizens of the city. And then he leaves. He just bails. Christian Bale bails. He just, leaves town, never to don the mantle again. And when he was with Selena Kyle, and he's like, "Yeah, this is my retirement stage or whatever." I remember not knowing a thing about Batman and fell off about that. I was like, would Batman do that? Not knowing a thing about Batman, I asked myself, I don't know if Batman would do that. So yeah, that's how much in the public conscience he is, and that's Prof has gotten on and on about the terrible, constantly just reiteration of the or reinterpreting the characters like Superman and Batman. Dr. Y says, Hans Zimmer's Lone Ranger score is good, but I've heard the same kind of music in spaghetti westerns and video games. I'm actually not familiar with the literature of spaghetti westerns and films even. And so I couldn't make, like, when I said that I did like a couple of the tracks that I thought were really beautiful, that was actually to say Hans Zimmer has, he has potential. He has potential with melodic writing. I couldn't compare that score to older Western scores. Probably not the same, actually. If I could make a guess, but that's for me to study and see later and maybe present it as a topic. Oh, I think I've heard of this. Look at the soundtrack for the video game Outlaws and then listen to Hans Zimmer's Lone Ranger score. Yeah, again, I'm not saying perfect, but I had heard about that game. In fact, I feel like I've listened to that Outlaw score, but maybe I'd have to do that again. Oh, thank you, Prof, for the analysis of Williams' Superman theme. Yeah, that was done about like a year and a half ago, and I still need to continue my hero theme series. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. That took a lot of work too. Final Fantasy fan says, I've listened to the Man of Steel theme 5 times, and I feel like a superhero flying around the world instead of feeling like Superman. When I listen to John Williams' Superman theme, I feel hopeful like Superman himself. The song even plays when you play as Superman when he's flying in the Lego Batman 2 and Lego Batman 3. Cool. That's cool. I'm glad that music could be in that game. Yeah, actually, there's this great little, 4.5-minute montage on YouTube where it has all of the great scenes of that film, and it just like swells up with so much hope, so much inspiration. It feels good. I even get a little teary-eyed, to be honest, when I see that movie and or at least see, a montage of those scenes. Saving Lois, saving who's that reporter's name? Just saving different people, even saving criminals he's trying to stop, like scaling the glass skyscrapers, and he's like, "Hey, now that's a big no-no," and they're shocked and they fall, and he saves them, and then he gives them to the police officers. And Danza is here. I hope I'm saying your name. I'm gonna say Danza for now. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Hopefully, I'm saying Göransson right too, by the way, because I know you're Swedish. And it is true, gigawatt. They do compare. People do compare the two. Um, Goatee Ghost Planet says John Williams' Superman March was used in Smallville. Cool. And I've never saw the show, but I know Big Al and Prof are familiar with it. And the Christopher Reeve films, my favorite two Superman projects, along with Lois and Clark, the 90s, and Super Friends, Superboy, 80s and 50s show, 80s show and 50s Superman. Yeah, that's good. I think I saw Super Friends a long time ago. I wonder if Prof has a collection of that. Danza says, I feel F major and G major are the sibling scales to C major. You're right. They have even a similar sound due to having the same notes as C major, except one. Yeah, exactly. B flat, of course. So B natural to B flat. Um, and then F to F sharp. But at the same time, I mean, there's an actual term for that closely related keys. These are known, F major, G major, and C major of the circle of fifths. They are closely related keys. So yes, they are close relatives. And so it's very fitting for John Williams to work with those keys in Superman. Okay, actually I need to hear the theme because that would be good to hear. Wasn't there like an old 60s cartoon of that? And then the 90s? Was that? Yeah, I feel like there are two versions of that show, but I could be wrong. Göransson, and I hope I'm saying his name right, is my Swedish brother. Is he now? I hope you have not seen any of my content on him. uh, oh, the Wonder Twins. Yeah, I remember them. Zan and Jaina. Is it Zan and Jaina? Yeah, I remember that. A little bit, just a tiny bit. Jigwatt says, Sound Engraver, do you think these composers don't honor the John Williams themes because they don't have the talent, or they want to have their version on every new iteration of the characters? Ooh, okay, so that's actually kind of like a two-part question that is pretty interesting. Let me answer that last part of the question, or they want to have their version on every new iteration of the characters. So if I was tasked to write a Superman theme, I would definitely be going straight to Williams for inspiration. Not that I would steal from him or steal the same melodic and harmonic and rhythmic ideas from him, but I would really work closely through analysis and all of that to see, okay, what did this make? What made this theme so good and so iconic for Superman? So that would be the first thing. And then the first part is that you were wondering if they don't have the talent. Um, I'll be careful because it could be relative. Talent could be relative here. I would say formulaic, and it's very easy for any artist, by the way, not just for musicians and composers. Like, it's easy to have a formula, like to have a workflow. But composers actually we do need to challenge ourselves. And this is what I did take from college is like, okay, you compose this way. You need to learn how to compose something that is not instinctive to do. And actually, that's a really good exercise. And because you don't want to get stuck inside a formula. A lot of things kind of do sound like the Man of Steel theme. Inception is a little bit more intimate. Interstellar is a little bit more experimental. So if he kind of went with the intimacy of Inception and the experimentation of Interstellar, and even the experimentation of things like Dune, then I think Hans Zimmer could not fall into the trap of becoming too formulaic. But I would say, and why I say formulaic, like if you fall into the trap of being formulaic, you might have talent, but that talent is not really shown because you're not stretching yourself artistically. So I wouldn't say it's lack of talent. But I would also say that some of these composers do not have the caliber. Like, they're applauded for things that they shouldn't be applauded for. Like, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, like, I didn't watch the show, and I'm not supporting Disney, but I did hear the Book of Boba Fett music theme. It's not well composed. And actually, The Mandalorian, I'm sorry to say this, guys, I'm sure it's like, "Oh, I mean, I'm sure that's gonna be so memorable for the end of time, I don't care. It's a very haphazardly done music composition. There's actually there's this kind of big fanfare that's supposed to sound like John Williams that Göransson did. Bum ba ba bum, ba ba bum ba ba bum ba ba ba, and it's perfect. But the transition there is really off. And I was listening when I was doing the analysis of the Mandalorian theme. He actually is using intervals that would be very appropriate voice leading for that fanfare, but he's putting it through instrumentation that just does not work. The pace of it doesn't work, the phrasing of it doesn't work. The intervals are the right intervals, but he does not know how to spell them out instrumentally to make that fanfare work. So he does not have the caliber of John Williams, and he won't until he practices his craft and he practices musical composition. And people say, like people say, well, do I have to follow all the rules of music theory? No, but I wouldn't ignore them either because you're working with patterns and mathematical relationships and dichotomies like consonance and dissonance, and voice leading, things like form follows function, and things function one way. And with good voice leading, you're leading the listener. And so I wouldn't disregard the rules at all. I actually would say, just kind of as a side note, if any of you ever want to learn music theory, first of all, you don't need to go to college to get a music theory degree. Do not do that because okay, I'm going to say this, the more music theory you know, sorry for my strong language, the crappier your music will be. Because I have studied a lot of music theorists, and maybe they knew how to compose before they became music theorists, but they got crazy scientific and crazy mathematical. Some of the music theory journals, I actually even have one, I think, on my shelf. I need to like look through it and see what it is. Some interesting concepts, some kind of Einsteinian figures flown out, out there. But when you get too immersed in music theory, like if you pursue even a master's in music theory, maybe not a master's, but if you pursue a doctorate in music theory, you will wreck your sensibilities as a composer. I'm sorry, guys, for you music theorists out there. I have seen what you've done with music, and it's not great. You're all mathematicians. That's all. I will say though that music has math in it, and it's very, very important. But if you want to know music theory to better your composition practice, all you really, really need is the first 2 to 3 semesters of music theory. Now you don't have to do that. Like you can go on YouTube and say, okay, what's first year college music theory, and then learn how to do music theory that way. You really only need the first year of music theory to better your composition practice. And you can find that on YouTube. You can probably pay a tutorial. There's music theory websites that would show you the way and all of that. You don't need to go to school. But you also don't need to pursue anything beyond 2 years. You just do not. You just know the fundamentals of music and then work with the first year music theory. You'll find that your caliber just goes up and up when you practice and you hear intuitively what's going on in music, theoretically, musically speaking. So hopefully, Gigawatt, that answered your question. I'll just go ahead and read it again just to make sure I have answered everything. So do these composers, do you think these composers don't honor the John Williams themes because they don't have the talent, or because they have their version on, they want to have their version on every new iteration of characters? I do not think there's anything wrong with having your own musical signature for Superman, but it can't come at the expense of Superman. So follow musically depicting the iconic Superman and you should be fine. But it would take some caliber to get to the level where Williams was. All right, let's continue. Moving on. Man, I'm really thirsty. Final Fantasy fan says, Man of Steel feels like a giant Act 1. It's almost the same with his Wonder Woman and Batman theme. He had a Oh, yeah, Batman for, oh, yeah, Christopher Nolan. This is what you must avoid when writing songs or even, stories being a lookalike. Yeah, that's a really good point. I actually I wanna welcome, Larry Day. Am I saying your name right? Thank you for joining. Um, yeah, so this is what you must, avoid when writing songs or even stories being a lookalike. Let's actually talk about, no now that's first of all, okay, let's just kinda talk about the 3, the Trinity. Okay, so we've talked about Superman. Let's go to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, that ain't Wonder Woman, okay? I remember talking, with my dad on the phone and how he liked the music, but then as soon as I started explaining how that wasn't Wonder Woman and compositionally why that just doesn't work for a character's theme, let alone Wonder Woman, he started saying, "Oh, yeah. You're right." He likes the experience of that music. I think people like the experience of a lot of Hans Zimmer's music, but when you break it down, it's like, is this Wonder Woman or could this music be used for a wildebeest stampede? You know? Like you can have like an army of hyenas charging down the safari, attacking lions, and you can use what that music was for Wonder Woman. That's how bad it is. Well, okay. Well, it's not great composition. It works as music. It's functional as music. I'm not saying it can't work for a good effect, but it's not for an iconic person, event, or place. You can't do music like that for a specific thing because it's supposed to get it that you're supposed to have this environment, like this musical environment and experience. Like I gotta feel on edge, like she's coming at me with a sword and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you can do that kind of music for anything. It's not Wonder Woman. Now with Batman, it's kind of like Superman. Did you know the melody for Batman, Nolan's Batman is dun dun, and then it happens again with different chords to make it sound epic. And then you what and I knew this going into, coming out of high school as a string player. Um, I always, even before entering composition and doing composing myself, um, I always thought the da 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 da. I can't sing in tune right now. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe I'm tired. Da 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 da. That's his string section. That's boring. Oh no, but it's a minor third, Michelle. It's supposed to be kind of mysterious and epic and stuff like that. It's like, no, it's boring. And I don't mind strings being used percussively once in a while and effectively, but strings are the one family of instruments that can sustain indefinitely. You cannot sustain indefinitely as a brass and a wind instrument because you have to have breath to produce the sound. The only other instrument that can sustain indefinitely is the organ. Apart from that, unless I'm missing something, brass, winds, harp, piano, celesta, uh, harpsichord, whatever the case is, clavichord, they cannot sustain indefinitely. We can sustain the notes until our arms fall off. So until we get really tired with our upper core here, string players can sustain indefinitely. So what does that mean? Well, we can do a lot of lush melodic stuff. So when we're used percussively, it's like, well, consider, composer, you had the winds and the brass to consider to do percussive stuff too, because they have to have breath. So if anything should be percussive, that's not strictly the percussion section, the family of percussion instruments, or piano, which is also a percussion instrument, then or string instrument. It's a string. It's percussion. I don't know. It's a debatable, but yeah, just use the brass and winds as percussion. Um, and strings from time to time, but don't make it overbearing. It's so infuriating when people do not use strings for their main function, which is to sustain indefinitely. We can do sweeping runs up and down with long bows and lush sounds like the French composers did so well. So note to you composers there. I'll tell you a little story before I get back into the chat. A college story. I remember the composition students, we were tasked with writing organ music. Actually, I think this was after my time, so I wasn't part of the project. But I think I visited for a year before actually moving out of the state. And the composers were tasked with composing for a professional organist. And I remember listening from master's students to doctorate students. Maybe I was a student and they didn't, maybe I just wasn't interested in doing it. I can't remember, but I remember not doing it. But the math, I heard a handful of master's students and doctorate students compose for organ. And the very interesting thing about that was every one of the students, I think it was every one of the students who composed for organ did very sporadic stuff. Boop, boop, ba-da-da-da-da, boop, 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 boop. And what's the significance of that? Well, there's pockets of silence. There's nothing wrong with pockets of silence, but as one of my professors pointed out after the session, he said, "Guys, this organ can sustain forever. Why don't you work with sustaining and then changing the timbres by changing, the pipe lengths and the various instruments that the organ can, the organ, the various sounds that the organ can procure." But instead, like composers they were treating the organ like a piano. And you got your keys and then you got your keys at the feet there, but the organ is very much not like a piano, where it pretty much actually really was that first analog representation of electronic music. It can sustain indefinitely. It's so cool. And the professor said, where's our sustaining tones? And I thought that was really interesting. I learned a lot from that session. I didn't compose for organ, but that was one thing I was like, they're treating this organ like a piano. It's like, you can't do that. Well, yeah, you can do that, but don't have all 7 or 8 students do that too. Anyway, that was a sidebar. All right, let's see. Let's finish up with chat here. Yeah, that does sound familiar. Jetman was going to be the first Power Rangers instead. Savan went with the dinosaur themed Zyu Ranger. Am I saying that right? Jetman was a Super Sentai season released back in 1991, and it was the last Sentai before Z Ranger. Am I saying that right? Was released in 1992, became Power Rangers in 1993. Oh, Elijah, welcome. I'm late. I thought that scene of Bruce and Selena together was Alfred's fantasy he described earlier in the film. Oh, I don't know. Is that true, guys? That's a new thing to know for me. I thought Batman died in reality. I don't know. That's worse even. That's worse. Come on, Nolan. Oh no. No, I thought he was alive. He was just retired. I could be wrong. Oh, an open ending, just like Inception. Interesting. Oh, Nolan. Oh, you want to talk about formulaic, like things like Tenet, like sci-fi thriller, everything's supposed to be dark and everything's supposed to look like Chicago and everything's supposed to have this kind of weird, not weird, but very much in your face electronic sound. A very loud, harsh electronic sound. Like harsher than like a distortion pedal for guitar, for electric guitar. It's supposed to really be tired. Electronic music that makes you tired. Like, I think Nolan is after like a physiological effect with his films. And I can't do that. Like, just give me Lord of the Rings, okay? I'll take Lord of the Rings anytime. My professor says maybe we should take a Thundercats break and break out my Super Friends DVDs. That'd be cool too. Yeah, I'm up for that. Oh, okay, you were just kidding. You're just kidding. I was actually unaware of his stuff before you bashed him. Oh, regarding Guernsey. That's funny. Yeah. I don't bash him because he's Swedish. Actually, I do think, actually, I will say, my favorite composers of electronic music, and even musicians I've known from, the universities, they come from Norway, they come from Sweden, they come from Finland, they come from Greece, they come from Italy, they come from Russia, they come from Czechoslovakia, like they come from Poland, you know. So you got that kind of North Europe, and then you got the East Europe, and then you got Russia. In fact, actually, to be honest, I don't have. I c- oh, my favorite all-time electronic composer is Swedish. Solar Fields. Yeah, he's the best, and I forgot he was Swedish. So yeah, so it's more his formulaic electronic writing and experimentation that I don't. Göransson, I think he's becoming a Hans Zimmer. Um, I listen to people who are out of France. I just, I don't know if I listen to any American electronic composer. I'll have to look at that. I'd never thought about that before. But I think all the people I listen to that I really like are from North Europe, East Europe, parts of the UK, Italy, Greece, maybe Turkey. No, Israel. There's some Israeli composers, a couple of them, maybe one I'm thinking of right now. And yeah, Sweden is a hot spot for electronic creativity. I mean, as far as the artists that I hear, as far as events, I don't know. Dr. Y says, Mando and Book of Boba Fett's themes sound like generic fantasy or medieval music. Actually, is it you, Dr. Y, who listens to Samuel Kim? He's good. I would say he does lack a little bit of composition prowess, but his production sounds great. Samuel Kim's music is very very well done, but he actually did a medieval adaptation of Book of Boba Fett, and that's what it should have been. That's what it should have been, is for something medieval, not something out of Star Wars. And actually, I think he did a medieval adaptation of the Mando theme as well. Final Fantasy is right. Practice your craft. Do this when writing songs and stories every day. Every day. Let's hey Jared, nice to see you. Bruce Wayne is alive. By the way, I put up comments. I know David Stewart doesn't do that, but if you don't want me to put up your comments, just let me know. Bruce Wayne is alive. Batman, quote, died. Bruce got out of the bat, likely after he shot the building to create a distraction. Theatrically and deception are powerful agents. I mean, see, actually, I kind of do like. I don't really know the Batman lore with Raz or Ras Al Ghul. Is it Ra's al Ghul? How do you pronounce that name? I heard different pronunciations. And as far as Batman Begins, I really did like that training, and him training at least the tactics of a vigilante or ninja or whatever, parkour, whatever the case is. I like that a lot. And Liam Neeson's character, where he says, theatricality and deception are powerful agents, and I think that works for Batman's character, even with that aspirational light. But yeah, that's not a fan of the subsequent films. Apart from Heath Ledger's Joker, I don't care for the, like, when he broke Alfred's heart. Like, no, 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 you don't break Alfred's heart. You just don't. He, apart from him being his closest friend and relative, he's an old man too. It's like, you don't do that, Bruce Wayne. So it's not Bruce Wayne. Anyway, let's keep on moving. I'm slightly sleep deprived, but I did have a little cat nap before the stream, so I feel a little bit better, but I'm a little sleep deprived. Elijah Brown says, I passionately hate that Wonder Woman theme. Yeah, It's awful. It's so awful. I have the best theme for Wonder Woman, but that reminds me actually that the yeah, the theme I had for her, I still have I can compose it very well. But, I found out that my gaming tracks, I had Logic Project gaming tracks that I did, last year for a challenge, a 7-day challenge. I can't find those projects anywhere on my computer, so I would have to if I wanna go back to those, themes and ideas for gaming music, I'd actually have to start from scratch. I do have it on YouTube, though. I posted on YouTube, so I have an aural reference of those. But, the final battle I really enjoyed, but I was like, "Man, this could really work. This could really work for Wonder Woman." I could probably try to find that track. It's totally electronic. It sounds like a final boss theme, but the melody sounds like Wonder Woman to me. I don't know. Anyway, I should move on. If you guys are interested in seeing what I'm talking about, I can find the link and post it. Let's continue. Oh, Bruce Wayne also had a funeral. He was believed to be dead, so it does make sense for the world famous Bruce Wayne to be hanging out in a cafe. Gosh, that this is stuff I didn't know. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, Nolan Batman isn't Batman. Go Team Ghost Planet is correct on that. Um Oh, and actually, guys, this is another topic, but, people who kinda, like, disregard like, they disparage superhero films saying it's not cerebral, it's not high art. They like the Nolan Batman. Think about that. I'll just throw that out. Maybe that is another topic of conversation, but, like, "Oh, Iron Man punching bad guys. This is not high art." "Oh, but the Nolan, that was deep." It's like, "What?" Iron Man is well written. It's a good, well written film. All right, Danza says gifted horn players can. Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, thank you for saying that. Don't know how common it is with classical music though. Classical music, I have actually seen instances of that, and I totally forgot. You are correct. And actually, I wonder if wind players can probably do that too. I know they can do aspirated tones with that. Oh, they do have circular breathing. But I don't know if they can maintain a warm tone like blowing, exhaling no, yeah, exhaling into the instrument. But thanks for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I that was something I totally forgot. And I bet anyone watching the replay would say, "No, she's wrong." Oh, see, I only saw the movie, like, once. Did describe the fantasy to Bruce earlier. Oh, Jiminy, that just the no respect that I had for that film just went down like -3. I'm glad you mentioned that 'cause I wouldn't have known that otherwise. That's crazy. Alright. Yes, I think so. Ace. I think that is true. Yeah, that's great. Oh, Eric Woods, welcome. Nice to see you. I highly recommend listening to Christopher Drake's score to the animated Wonder Woman film. Yes, actually, I've seen that film. And it's awesome. That's the one we saw, Prof, right? Yes, yes. Yeah, Prof and I, we saw that, sometime last year. In fact, I was actually thinking about that film just before starting the stream, and it's great. I was like, when he holds the door open for her, "We talked about this, Angel," with Nathan Fillion. That is good. That was good music. You are absolutely right about that. Dr. Y says, Samuel Kim. He merged Zimmer's Pirates of the Caribbean with John Williams' Star Wars, Davy Jones plus Imperial March. Yeah, I think he definitely has earned his subscriber count, no question. Okay, thanks, Ace. See you later. Um, yeah, he's great. I would say he gets a little formulaic as far as chord progressions, but I'm not gonna beat that over with a stick. So anyway, we kind of made it to the 90-minute mark, and that's pretty much all I've wanted to say. Looking at the doc going forward, what's on the doc going forward? In in the immediate future, I have been troubleshooting in SuperCollider today, and I solved a problem. I solved about 60% of the problem, but I actually can record that 60% as a video. It will be using my FM synthesis samples. It's been like 5 weeks since I posted a SuperCollider video. I've just been busy with other musical things, and I'll actually probably do a separate video on musical being stuck creatively, because I found myself in a kind of just a stuck position. But there's a lot to talk about, but I don't have the energy to talk about on the stream, so that'll have to be a separate video. I might go on another, not rant, but just kind of a artistic reflection of really what's been kind of happening to me creatively over the last couple weeks. But anyway, in the immediate future, I went back to SuperCollider today and worked in my FM synthesis documentation, and I'm practicing a very specific trick that I need for ultimately live processing. So using the FM synthesis sounds that I've procured, that you've seen in recent videos if you watch my SuperCollider stuff, and then I put that through live processing. So whether it's my voice into the microphone or my violin, and I'm going to tell you, I have figured out how to do live processing FM, but the sounds are awful. It's awful, and I was not getting the right trajectory of releasing the synth. I'm not going to explain what's going on technically speaking, but I know how to do FM live processing, but I need to show you a very effective way if you want to ever do live processing. This is for you SuperCollider users out there. If you want to do effectively live processing for voice or your instrument. So I'm solving one little feature, one little problem. I'm going to show that maybe Thursday or Friday as a separate video. And then probably the following week, I'll do another final FM synthesis SuperCollider video on me speaking or singing or playing the violin. Probably speaking and singing, because my condenser mic hates my violin. Sorry, Mike, you just don't like my violin. So anyway, that some SuperCollider videos to come in the next couple of weeks, and maybe an artistic reflection. And next stream, I'd actually like to talk about Final Fantasy V, because I don't want to even just talk about the themes, like between 5 and 10 really good themes for Final Fantasy V. It's great. I enjoyed that game so much. I'm on Final Fantasy VI, also liking that game, but I really do. I really love Final Fantasy V. I'm already looking forward to going back to it one of these years. But some of the music is really important for not just music's sake, but for character development and setting. And what makes a good villain is a good musical villain theme. What makes a good heroine and female princess is a beautiful feminine childlike theme. And so we'll probably go into the topic, the discussion. I had done a live stream on Final Fantasy IV, but I did track by track. I think I'm only going to do between 5 to 8 tracks, not like 25 tracks. I'm not going to do a score and analysis. That will be for a fixed video. But I'll talk about Final Fantasy V next week. That'll be fun. I really enjoyed it. Of course, look out for maybe book studies. Sometimes Prof has a pretty up and down schedule with different things, juggling different things. Working two jobs and then being a dad. So just kind of be on the lookout for both his Catholic Bible Geek and his Professor Geek as far as book studies, and then also his Catholic Bible Geek for his weekly Bible overviews, Bible surveys. Yeah, overviews of. I think did we wrap up Genesis? Yes, we did. We did wrap up Genesis, right, Prof? And I think we're going, oh yes, we are going into Exodus. So he's going to start going into Exodus for the Holy Week. Yes, and we are, back to Professor Geek tomorrow. Okay, Big Al Presents and I, we will be back tomorrow night at 9:30 to continue the Star Wars Allegiance book study. Cool. All right, look out for some Star Wars there. Okay, so that is it for me, guys. I thank you for hanging out with me. I just enjoy interacting with you on the chat, and it's really one of my highlights. Streaming and chatting with you guys is really one of my highlights. So I hope you guys have a terrific rest of your week. I'll see you probably on other chats on the online space, and until I see you, keep producing and preserving the art that you love. Take care.